The wind whispered through the sprawling fields of the estate, tugging at Emily's loose shawl as she stood on the porch, arms wrapped around herself. She watched the black sedan disappear down the long gravel driveway, its taillights fading into the horizon. David was gone again, off to another city for another business deal, leaving her alone in the house that had once felt like a dream but now resembled a gilded cage. She let out a slow breath, her fingers tightening against the wooden railing. The life they had built was comfortable, grand even. Yet, there was an emptiness that luxury could not fill. David had become more of a passing presence in her life than a partner, their conversations reduced to itineraries and polite acknowledgments. A distant neigh drew her attention to the stables, where Storm, her prized black stallion, stood restless against his enclosure. She smiled faintly. At least the horse gave her solace. Turning on her heel, she walked down the steps, the cool morning dew clinging to her boots as she made her way to the stable. Inside, the scent of hay and leather wrapped around her like a familiar embrace. Storm huffed, shaking his mane as she reached out to stroke his nose. "You miss him too, don't you?" she murmured, though she wasn't sure if she meant David or the presence of something more, something deeper. "You handle him well." The deep voice startled her. Emily turned sharply, her eyes meeting the newcomers. Lucas stood at the entrance, the morning sun casting long shadows behind him. He was tall, rugged, his tousled brown hair damp with sweat from the morning's work. A streak of dust lined his forearm where he had wiped his brow. She knew of him, of course. David had hired him to oversee the horses while he was away, something about ensuring their bloodlines remained strong. They had only exchanged pleasantries in passing before now, but standing in the intimate quiet of the stable, Emily felt an odd awareness settle over her. "I try," she replied, voice steady despite the slight tremor in her chest. "Storm has always been good to me." Lucas stepped forward, his gaze sweeping over the stallion before landing back on her. Horses respond to energy. They sense what people try to hide. Emily let out a soft laugh, though the words struck a nerve. "Is that so?" He leaned against the wooden frame, arms crossing over his chest. "It is. I've seen it more times than I can count. Some people come around them, all control and tension, and the horses rebel. Others, well, they're different." She tilted her head slightly. "And what do you think I am?" Lucas studied her, his eyes unreadable. "Someone who feels more than they let on." The words hung between them, heavy yet unspoken. A challenge, an observation, or something else entirely. Emily wasn't sure. A gust of wind rattled the stable doors, making her exhale sharply. "I should get going. Storm needs his run." Lucas nodded, stepping aside to let her pass, but as she moved past him, she caught a hint of something. Earth and sweat, the scent of someone who lived his life under the open sky, untethered. It was intoxicating in its own way, different from the sterile colognes and pressed suits of the world she had married into. She mounted Storm with practiced ease, gripping the reins as the horse tensed beneath her. With a gentle nudge, she urged him forward, galloping out into the open fields. The wind whipped against her face, her hair unraveling in the rush. She rode faster, as if speed alone could outpace the thoughts creeping into her mind. Lucas watched from the stable, his expression unreadable. Emily didn't look back. Emily spent the next few days trying to shake the lingering awareness Lucas had stirred in her. She told herself it was nothing, just a passing curiosity, a fleeting moment of attraction born from solitude. And yet, every time she stepped onto the estate grounds, her gaze instinctively searched for him. It wasn't until the afternoon sun hung high that she found herself near the training paddock. Lucas was there, working with a young mare that resisted his guidance. His voice was calm, his movements deliberate, as he ran a firm hand along the horse's neck. The mare hesitated, then relented, allowing him to lead her without protest. "You have a way with them," Emily said, her voice carrying over the fence. Lucas turned, surprised but not unwelcoming. "Patience is everything." She stepped closer, resting her hands on the wooden beam. And what happens when patience runs out? He studied her, the weight of her words settling between them. Then you wait longer. A wry smile played at her lips. That sounds exhausting. Lucas shrugged. Anything worth having usually is. The simplicity of his words unsettled her. She had spent years waiting for David's attention, waiting for her own restlessness to fade. But waiting had brought her nothing but emptiness. The mare stomped the ground, drawing Lucas's attention back. Would you like to try? Emily hesitated. Try what? Earning her trust. He gestured for her to join him inside the paddock. Something in his gaze made her pulse quicken, but she stepped through the gate nonetheless. He guided her to stand beside him, their shoulders nearly touching as he placed the rope in her hands. Move slow, he instructed. Let her come to you. Emily exhaled, following his guidance. The mare flicked her ears but remained still. Slowly, she extended her palm. When the horse finally lowered its nose to her touch, something unspoken passed through her. A quiet understanding, a connection she hadn't realized she craved. Lucas watched her carefully. See, it's not about control. It's about trust. She turned her head slightly, meeting his gaze. And what about when trust is broken? For the first time, something unreadable flickered across his face. Then you decide if it's worth rebuilding. Emily swallowed hard, the weight of his words pressing into something deep inside her. The silence stretched between them, heavy with possibilities. And for the first time in a long while, she wasn't sure she wanted to wait anymore. The evening air was thick with the scent of earth and fading sunlight as Emily lingered near the stables, her hands trailing along the weathered wood of the fence. Something about this place grounded her, yet it was also where she felt most untethered. Lucas's words from earlier replayed in her mind, stirring something she wasn't ready to name. A voice broke her reverie. Couldn't stay away. She turned, finding Lucas standing a few feet away, arms crossed, watching her with that same unreadable expression. I wanted to clear my head, she admitted. He stepped closer, his presence a quiet challenge. And Emily hesitated, then met his gaze. I think I'm done waiting.